Today promises to be quite a treat. I'm sure you imagine that, which is why you're here. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. As you know, we are celebrating excellence through our commemoration of Nobel Laureate Week, and this is one of many activities that the campus has designed particularly for this purpose. So you're having the privilege to experience one of those today, which is the academic discourse on a very polemic topic, Dennery segment, or the Kuduro genre. It's evolution, devolution, or revolution, which is a topic up for discussion today. And we have a very interesting and very mixed panel who will be sharing their views on this particular topic with you. And I'm going to do the introduction of the panelists and, of course, our moderator. At this point, I will ask that you turn off your devices or you put them onto silent mode. And again, we want to just welcome all of you, students, faculty. We have the media in the house, and we know that it'll be a spectacular event today. Before I move on to our very brief introduction on our various panelists and our moderator, it is quite unfortunate that our event and our celebration is somewhat saddened by the fact that we have lost two of our own at the college. And at this point, I ask that we respect them and their memory by observing a minute of silence for Brandon St. Omer from the Division of Arts and Bradley Cyril was from the Technical Division. So at this point, I would like us to observe, to stand please, so we can observe and remember our young men. A very moving time. I'm sure they would have been here with us today. Thank you. So at this point, the introduction, we're getting right into the matter, which, as I said earlier, promises to be a treat. We have our moderator, if you can just indicate to the audience, Mr. Vladimir Lucia, who is one of our very own. He's a lecturer of Caribbean Studies. Feel free to give him a round of applause. That's fine. He's going to do a remarkable job. Lecturer of Caribbean Studies and Literature right here on campus. He's the author of Sounding Ground, and his particular anthology of poetry is the winner of the 2015 Bocas Prize for Caribbean Literature. Mr. Lucian is also the co-editor of St. Lucie, Poetry and Art of St. Lucia. He's your esteemed moderator for the afternoon. And now an introduction of our panelists. We have Dean Anthony Félicien, Dr. Anthony Félicien, please indicate. Feel free to give him a round of applause as well. Dr. Félicien currently serves as the Assistant Chief Examiner for English A for the Regional Caribbean Examinations Council. He's the Dean, a very own Dean here of the Division of Teacher Education and Educational Administration at our college. Dr. Félicien has spent over 30 years in the education system, having taught English language. I'm happy to say that, it's just a really quick anecdote, I have to say this, that he was my past teacher many a moon ago, and he did impact on my involvement in education a day like today. So, communication studies and curriculum is another area of speciality. He has his bachelor's degree in English and a master's and PhD in education with specialization in curriculum. Our very own Dr. and Dean Félicien. All right. Miss Sonasia James, our solitary female. Our Rose. She's currently a second-year student at the Division of Teacher Education and Educational Administration. She's an activist for youth development and empowerment, and she's very passionate about the preservation of St. Lucian culture and patrimony. She herself has worked in theater, stage management, visual arts, music, songwriting, a multi-talented young lady. Thank you, Ms. James. Dr. Travis Weeks, please indicate, is a lecturer also here at our campus, lecturer of theater arts and Caribbean studies, an actor. You might have seen him. You may want to get some autographs afterwards. Poet, playwright, director, cultural critic, and this UE graduate has pioneered the implementation of theater arts in the SALCC syllabus here in St. Lucia, which was quite an accomplishment. He has written several plays, including Jazz Country, The Field of Power, and most recently his 2015 piece, The Fight for Bellevue. Dr. Travis Weeks. Winding down, we have Mr. Ernest Otley, also a lecturer here at Arthur Lewis, a lecturer of psychology and management. And you're realizing that all of our panelists have an involvement in the genre in music in some way or the other. Mr. Otley is a musician and taught music for many years. He shared the stage with many a musical legend like David Rudder and Gypsy. He's a songwriter and producer, and he has written albums for Shirley Ann Cyril, for instance. And he's also the co-founder and manager of Risen 102.5 FM radio, Mr. Ernest Otley. And to round off our panel, we have our another administrator in the midst, our very own Dean, Kurt Harris. Of course, our Dean for the Division of Technical Education Management Studies. Mr. Harris was a lecturer in the Electrical and Electronics Department at the college for 8 years. Many of us may not even be aware of this. He studied telecommunications. He did his bachelor's in that, and his master's is in the design of energy-efficient buildings. So you may be wondering, what is Mr. Harris's connection to music and the musical genre? A number of you may not know this fun fact, that he actually worked with DN5. Those of us back in the day, we remember the band, DN5. Mr. Harris was quite instrumental with the band. I pass you on to your moderator. Lots more fun stuff to talk about, I'm sure. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome once again. I'm not going to be long. My job is not to talk much, just to make sure persons stick within the given time and that there's no impromptu dancing. Right, so we already have an order lined up. I will just indicate the speaker. They have, I think, about 8 minutes to deliver their points and so on, and then we have a discussion afterwards. And I will also be fielding questions from the audience as well. So welcome, and let's get this thing underway. So we begin with Dr. Lucia, who will start us off.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Dennery segment. Artists tend to reflect on the human experience and give voice to it. And sex is part of the human experience, and obviously an area that is explored by artists. We have writers such as D.H. Lawrence, who shocked the literary world in the 18th century with his bold explorations of sexuality. You had works like Sons and Lovers and Lady Chatterley's Lover. In the Caribbean, our calypso music has also seen this whole issue or theme of sex being addressed. And I will focus in my presentation on sexual imagery in the Dennery segment. Sexual imagery is evident in our calypso music, showing, of course, that this preoccupation with sex is not limited to any particular generation. The older among us will remember the mighty Sparrow, well known for his cleverly crafted pieces, in some cases directed at the female genitalia. Remember the song Saltfish. Sparrow informed his audience, "Put no pepper, the bone in the center does be sweet like sugar. Saltfish, it's sweeter than meat. When you want to eat, all saltfish sweet. And of course, we notice Sparrow cleverly crafting this there, but we all laugh since we know what he's hinting at. Sparrow continued with Congo Man, hinting and indicating he never eats a white meat yet. Of course, we heard of the big bamboo and pussy frayed water. All Sparrow's classics that have their subject matter as sex or the sexual organs. In St. Lucia now, our Creole songs have addressed the issue of sex. We remember Philip Mossozowe imaye pi Edwaline. Of course, we may Edwaline ka we may Philip ki te. Depuis Philip maye, ipa jamais fait ça. And recently, we've had this burst of energy on the local music scene, the Lucian Kuduro or the Dennery segment. The beat is infectious, but what causes alarm to people is the content, the very raw and graphic references made to sex. We notice an interesting technique that they employ in the use of cleverly crafted solution images. Si uni a go bumper, ekusa fei pale, mweka pliche ko fig, mweka laboué ko cochon. Very graphic solution images. The images get more interesting in the following lyrics. Febodal pliche coco, lauka wime or le bagaila. And we all know what bagaila is. He intensifies in another song, Mute sako pie coco, deson kauka fuye shu. Again, very interesting agricultural images of climbing and planting. The writers get more intimate and expose the listener to the sexual act by saying, Uve satifi, ponsa, nabau gokoko, nabau satwaka, mutela do kokabuit, ukaikui sapanti. None of that needs any further explanation, as you know what he's hinting at. And we look at 4 songs where we really see the graphic nature. The first one, I Have a Thing.
G6 Productions. What's up? Bad boy team. Gruesome. I have a thing. All of them want that thing. Give them that thing. All of them cry. I have a thing. All of them want.
Okay. I have a thing. All of them want that thing. Give them the thing. All of them cry. Of course, the sexual references also known in another song, Fosse. Again, those who do not understand the Creole, force is to force it in. So it cannot go in easily, ram it in. The third one, vacuum.
Yo, you know, as a vacuum, one thing I want to do, hey, I want to them, I want to them, I want to them, I want to them. Mas pela puma essa vacuum.
Just in case we do not understand the Creole, the sounds suggest it all. This song is scandalous, but very original. The writer, of course, referring to the sexual act, and the suggestive songs add to the very graphic nature of the content. One can just imagine a vacuum cleaner just sucking in everything. Very original, very clever, scandalous, but very different. And the last one, motorboats.
Fantasy, yo Chrome, hey Pablo. C'est moi qui motorboat, na vin pou fè yo scoot. Fè yo scoot, na vin pou fè yo scoot. Se mwen ki motobot, na vim pou fè yo skot. Fè yo skot, na vim pou fè yo skot. Se mwen...
Think of a motorboat on water, speeding and water gushing out at the back. That is the image. Knife out, squirt. Of course, we know what squirting is. And that is the image. Very riveting as one looks and imagines the effect a motorboat has on water. Of course, how the water gushes in the end, the writer is clearly indicating the kind of performing sexual act on his partner. So while the images are crude, they're very different. There's a certain level of originality and, of course, risk-taking. But in the business of the arts, everybody takes risks. And we notice with all the music, while we may find the images disturbing, what is really catching the attention of the listener is the sound, the music, the vibe you get from this. Because sometimes, even without analyzing it, the beat is infectious. And this is what has caught the attention of persons. So maybe we're looking at a new era of artists wishing to push the envelope. Sparrow started it in a subtle way. Then at the local level, we had more graphic examples. There was a time Darby Etienne in the 90s created this song, Kakalak is Yours. Now you could not get more basic than this. Okay? So again, we notice artists exploring with a certain form, and in their case, using the Creole and using images sometimes we would not even think of, and pulling them together in a very creative manner. Of course, the do-gooders among us would frown on this, but when you analyzing it, very clever and interesting work by the artists. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Felicia. I'll just take this opportunity to reiterate the topic so that we're all oriented with it. It's Dennery segment, evolution, devolution, and you notice the pun on devolution, I don't know, revolution. One of the beauties of being here is I get to see who fidgets in their seats when certain images are said and who seems entirely comfortable. Anyway, so we move along to the next panelist, who is Ms. Sonasia James. Round of applause, please.
The Dennery segment has been the topic for some time now, and when I was informed that this was the topic, I was thrilled. I too have spent many hours listening, discussing, and of course enjoying the Dennery segment. Initially, after being exposed to the songs that have recently been released, I can relate to a few persons who speak on morals, expressing disdain for the lyrics and the behavior the music influences. I remember being in a classroom teaching music, and in our genre lesson, I observed the way my past students would react when popular Dennery tracks were being played. And they would sing the song, every line, word for word. And I was always concerned, and to the back of my mind, I would think, are these children being exposed to this? How do children know these songs? And of course, I would be asking myself, I hope that these children are not seeing these things. However, we must take a step back and look at the journey and where this genre has come from. And we need to appreciate how far we have gotten. In a documentary by San Justin and Dylan Inglis, the Dennery segment is described as an infusion of dancehall, soca, zouk, and its rural influences was mentioned, which is the serenal and the solo at its core. As one of my siblings stated, Dennery segment is our new age solo. When we think about all the genres that I mentioned, we must also appreciate the fact that Dennery segment belongs to under an umbrella of its own. It cannot fit under any one of the genres I mentioned. It cannot be dancehall, it cannot be soca. It belongs to something on its own. And that is why I refer to it as an emerging genre. I say this is evolution because the most basic definition refers to evolution as the gradual development of something, especially from something simple to a more complex form. The Dennery segment has been around for several years, and it has grown from cheap fetes in Dennery, where young artists got a bly to sing on a rhythm, to an essential segment in a fete. And of course, it has grown to regional and international carnival. Now in Barbados and Trinidad, after every 4 songs, a Dennery segment song is played. I believe that our role, rather than to stand on the sidelines and chastise this genre and this developing product, would be to take a step back and try to appreciate and nurture it. I believe that there is a process that must be gone through, similar to that of refining a diamond. I believe when I think of the Dennery segment, I think of the process of refining diamond. I believe energy needs to be put into investing and guiding these artists to transform this package from rough, which it now is, to polished. How? Provide workshops, guidance, learning opportunities to develop our performers. We need to place emphasis on creating a product that is ready for the international market, because this emerging genre is taking over and growing rapidly, whether we want it to or not. As a performer, when I see some of these live performances, I get reminded of the fact that training is necessary. Performing is more than just putting your foot on the monitor and singing into a mic with your hand covering half of the mic. Performing is more than that. And I feel that our performers, our Dennery soca artists, they need the exposure to that education. Here in St. Lucia, we have developed a culture where we don't just accept things, but we only accept and show respect for something local only when it is recognized outside of our borders, not only in music, but in other fields as well. Although we cannot change the mindset of the masses, I urge you as young people and the person sitting in this audience to practice taking an open-minded approach to something that is new, especially when it has not yet been defined. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying to force yourself and accept the raunchy lyrics. I'm not saying that you are supposed to sit there and accept some of the vulgar content that some of these songs have. But I am saying that you need to appreciate, like Dr. Anthony mentioned, that it is new, that it is a show of creativity, that it is artmanship, that it is somebody's art. And so we need to have an open-minded approach to this genre of music. A friend of mine residing abroad expressed to me how excited she got every time she heard the Creole infused in the songs. Like she stated, it makes you want to learn the language. This is the impact that this music has on the world. And we have the ability to sell our country, and the longevity of this product, this genre, is truly dependent on our packaging, which we have the power to control. In closing, this music is a form of expression, like any form of music. Music is expressing something. Music, from the beginning of time, has always been a person's attempt to express a thought or an idea. When we think of expressing a message, for instance, hope. When you think of hope, I think of gospel music. I think of Andra Day. I think of that song, Rise Up. When we think of expressing dissatisfaction, there are a couple of genres I think of. I think of Calypso. I think of Ed Sheeran. I think of so many different songs that just help express that dissatisfaction. When we think of excitement or a feeling of empowerment, for myself, I put on my headphones and I listen to soca music whilst I commute. Listen to Big Bang Soca by Bunji Garlin, right? That song makes me feel empowered. Or if I'm really not in the mood, I might play some Beyonce and I might feel like an empowered woman. Just drop my afro and I would go into my day. When we think of sadness and depression, I think of country and western. That might just be me, but I think of country and western. The Dennery segment evokes an emotion of release. It lets you want to let go. It's about being brave, not knowing how to dance, but attempting to, because you know what, that song makes you feel like you need to let go. And that is the emotion that this genre evokes, not only in St. Lucia, but abroad, regionally, internationally. And that is why it is so easily embraced and accepted by persons who don't even speak the language. So I am terribly in support of the acceptance and the evolution of this genre. And I believe that this products, just like diamond, can be beautiful if we invest our energy into developing and processing it. I want us to create and process a product that can share and market our country worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. James, for a very astute presentation. We move to the next panelist, who is Dr. Travis Weeks. Round of applause.
Good afternoon, students, ladies and gentlemen. All right, I want to take an approach that focuses on historical political context of the development of the form. Like many of us, I have been wondering, where is it that power come from? Where is it that, what uniqueness that makes the Dennery segment so popular, that it has this international appeal. When we've had so many artists who've been trying for so long to reach out there, and have not been able to. So certainly, this discussion is a search for an answer, to find out what it is that really goes about to create that kind of cultural power that we are witnessing happening, right in our times. And so I have to contextualize the whole thing in order to rationalize what has happened. There has been a tremendous amount of hostility to Afro-derived cultural forms historically in St. Lucia. The outlawing of all non-Christian religious practices, from which a lot of our arts come from, has been very, very significant in terms of, how the colonial powers really went about trying to destroy what it is that we had. In 1881, the British banned all percussive instruments in all the colonies in the Caribbean. And that, of course, included drums, beating of sticks, etc. The slaves were forbidden to beat drums or blow horns during that time. They just couldn't do it. In places like Trinidad, what happened as a result, you had a radical response. So later you had the development of the steel bands in Trinidad as a kind of response to the fact that, okay, we can't beat drums or use our sticks, but that is how the steel band was invented out of that kind of context. In St. Lucia, between 1794 and 1796, that period of time when the British eventually took over, that was a very, very, very significant time for us, because what happened then, sound, I was wondering. What happened then was that the British went full force to destroy the cultural and political power of St. Lucia. The French and the Negmawa were banding together, and the British had to go and destroy them. So I want to suggest that there has been a very strong radical element in St. Lucian culture, whether it be the literary arts or the folk arts, as a response to that kind of colonial hegemony, to keep down our people, to obliterate their very culture. And so what we are witnessing with the Dennery segment, I want to suggest, is one, is a group of youths, artists, from all over, who are using our Afro-Creole culture as a tool for their cultural creativity. We're also using it for social and financial mobility. A lot of those youths would have otherwise been unemployed or underemployed, or would have been nobodies. But now we know their names, they're traveling. Just recently, I was going to see my father at France, and I gave a lady a ride. She had a baby. And I happened to learn that she was the mother of Black Boy. Black Boy is the one who sings, Wine and Go Down, right? Yeah, the firefighter. And he also is the one who sang another popular one that's not coming to mind. But she was telling me, basically, that he grew up in Chasse by her. And she's telling me that the whole family, they love the solo. Her mother sings, she sings, they dance. He grew up in that kind of environment where they dance and sing the solo. And she said what he used to do was he used to go on the tree and was always scribbling and chanting and so on. And she used to chastise him, what you doing on that tree? And she said now when when people always pointing to her in town that this is Black Boy's mother, she feels so proud that sometimes it brings tears to her eyes. Incidentally, I asked her, I told her I would like to interview Black Boy, and she told me, no, he's in Martinique. I tell her, well, we have a discussion next week. Can I interview him when he comes back? She told me, no, from there he's going to Guadeloupe and then England, right? So the social and financial mobility, the youths are realizing they could embrace that kind of cultural power to advance themselves. But you see, what is also happening is that, and this is a radical element that continues in our culture, is that they're using our indigenous linguistic expressions, both in Creole and Creole English, as well as the St. Lucian rhythms, in order to create and use the whole culture as a tool for the advancement that I'm talking about. We must remember that beating of the drum was taboo in St. Lucia. Using that kind of percussion was taboo in St. Lucia. I remember there was certain homes I used to go to, and because I myself was very rhythmic and so on, and I had friends, I remember a lady tell me once, "Pabat tambour de la kaila." Panipu, and there was this whole thing about beating the drum in the house would raise evil spirits, etc., etc. So we really grew up in an environment where it was taboo to engage in a lot of our Afro-Creole expressions. We were discouraged from it. But there are some things that have been happening in recent times where I think our young people, are becoming more, they began to embrace the Afro-Creole heritage more. At the turn of the 90s, the Nigerian movies became so popular in St. Lucia, and particularly in all corners of the island, in the rural areas, the people really became very addicted to the Nigerian movies. And I think part of the reason is because they were seeing themselves, they were seeing elements, aspects of their own characters, their lives, their stories, etc. And I think that was paving the ground for an acceptance of images of us, if you like. Also, the African music, the Kuduro music like Sally, Sally, P-Square, personally, the African music itself becoming popular from the popular culture among the young people, they began to realize that, hey, this is accepted and this is something that we can use as a tool in the same way that the Africans are using it. Because people like it. So let me wrap up. I'll skip some of those slides, probably deal with it another time. But I think one important point I'd like to make, and we have to look at parallels when we're trying to find answers, when we're undertaking research in these areas. And some research that's currently been carried out in Jamaica on the same thing, the phenomenon of Jamaican dancehall music. They're finding out that the Jamaican djembe drum, which was the drum that was used by the Maroons, that this drum is impacting music in Africa and everywhere because, and that is the thing, out of the crucible of colonization, out of the crucible of the formation of our Creole culture, some unique things have happened. And I think that is where the answer lies in terms of trying to understand where is it that power from the Dennery segment is coming from. That radical element, something was created that is powerful, that held the people together, that helped them pushing through. Similar to the djembe drum and the Maroons in Jamaica, and you have the dancehall. And make no mistake, although this music is devised by the technology, the technology actually is influenced by the rhythmic, the percussive sounds, the drum sounds. And the youths, many of them, I saw an interview with Moto, he's saying he doesn't know music. But yet he's the one that is devising the sounds, the rhythms that Marshall Montano and so on riding over. Subconsciously, these rhythms, they are inside of us. And that is the rhythms that kept our people going. And now the youths are using it for their social, financial, etc. mobility. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I like the way the discussion is being layered. So now we have a historical perspective for the emergence of Dennery segment, aka Lucia and Kuduro. So we move on to the next panelist, who is Mr. Ernest Otley. Round of applause.
Greetings to you. We will certainly add some layers with my perspective on the subject, as well as bring in some of the other elements that we have heard before. Some time ago, in around 1965, a gentleman by the name of Slinger Francisco, who has already been referenced here by Dr. Anthony, wanted to speak about prostitution. In St. Lucia, we might say, making bomb. So he decided to coin the words, Jean and Dinah, Rosita and Clementina, by the corner posing, bet your life is something they're selling. And if you catch them broken, you can get them all for nothing. Don't make a row. The Yankees gone. Sparrow take over now. He spoke some very veiled words to reveal an underlying smut element. Dr. Anthony said, sex. Sigmund Freud and those people agree that we are ruled by sex. But here, he veiled those connotations in those words. In those times, 1965 and before, veiling of words to reveal certain context was the norm. It was the thing that tied intellectualism, how bright you were, to how well you can veil smut or indecency. However, there was a shift in thought, which we will discuss a little later. But by the 1980s, people like Janet Jackson began to reveal the shift by becoming a little plainer, a little more upfront with their words and their thoughts. So she asked the question, what have you done for me lately? Then she spoke about being nasty. All you nasty boys. And then, by the 90s, a group called Color Me Bad started to say very plainly, I want to sex you up. There was a shift. But I don't want you to think that that shift was within the musical context only. The shift actually pervaded the world. St. Lucia, the Caribbean, social thought all over the world. Here's why. We began to see the emergence of things like not having to deal with the details of getting a license through manual gear shifting, but now in St. Lucia we have automatic driver's license. You can take your driver's license for just automatic vehicles. There was something else happening. Advertisers, stores, commercial entities were telling us about getting it now. So Courts had a very famous advertisement, get it now, flow, bow, something like that. And of course, enter 2018, 2017, Donald Trump says what he has to say. He is unlike any other presidential candidate that you have ever seen. As a matter of fact, some people would agree that he doesn't look or sound presidential, because looking and sounding presidential has a certain kind of flavor to it. You must be diplomatic. You must be tactful. However, that is not the case. So in the world of music and in the world in general, there's a shift. What is that shift? That shift is called, in psychological terms, instant gratification. The mind of the world wants to be satisfied up front. As a matter of fact, you don't want to have to think after. As a matter of fact, it is, tell me before I think about it. Instead of making me think about it before you tell me. So when Sparrow did his thing, we had to think about it before we found the meaning. Today, when the guys from the Dennery section tell us, we get it first, and then we think. Because that is now what the world wants. So it's not about the music. This is not about the Dennery section. This is not about its evolution. Because, listen carefully, it has been said before, this music came about because of a combination of soca. Where is soca from? The Caribbean. Perhaps in coming up with Kuduro, they probably listened to some soca from Dennery. We don't know. But Kuduro is a combination of soca, zouk. Where is zouk from? The Caribbean. So, Dennery segment really is Dennery segment. It belongs there. And even Kuduro maybe. But that's not the point. So this is not a discussion about that. It's about the psychology of things. So we continue to link sophistication and intelligence to how deeply we have to think about a matter. I think we are going the wrong way there. We still have depth of thought whether we think about the matter first or last. So language is playing a big part in this. Our artists now are caught between the need to adjust to this emerging liberalism and caught between the subtle and the brazen. But it's marketing. Get it now, flow, bow. All right? It's marketing. What appeals and engages the mind right now is upfront. Don't make me think about it after. This is not the Gene and Dinah era. So lyrics seem shallow, but the attraction for deeper thought is there. There's the clash between artistry and culture, psychology and liberalism.
1 minute left.
In that minute, I will ask you to consider this. In speaking about my girlfriend, I may say that she is not proficient in English. She shows no great prowess in Spanish. But regarding the gluteus maximus activity, she shows great dexterity. In other words, she's bad in bam bam.
Okay, thank you. We go directly to our next panelist, Mr. Kurt Harris.
Good afternoon. I hope I could be brief enough so that persons can get time to ask their questions. So for me, the question was, Dennery segment, evolution, revolution, or devolution? So first, let us define what those words mean. Evolution is the gradual development of something, especially from a simple to a more complex form. Revolution is a dramatic and wide-reaching change in the way something works or is organized or in people's ideas about it. And devolution is the descent or degeneration to a lower or worse state. So there we ask the question. The Dennery segment, evolution, revolution, or devolution? This genre of music first interacted with me with a song that I found very obnoxious. May I say even a stupid song. I Want to Be Your Butterfly. For me, it had a horrid singer, some out-of-tune dancers, and the lyrics made absolutely no sense. Yet it became popular. It had a music video, and everybody was singing that song that to me was absolutely stupid. But then after that, there was this explosion of songs on all of a sudden, started hearing all of those songs from artists such as Mata and Migos, Black Boy, Messi, to name a few. Then not too long after I got exposed to this music, some students came to me to have a show. And they said that the guest artist was going to be Black Boy. So I was, who's Black Boy? And they said, so just go on YouTube. So I went on to YouTube. And when I listened to the lyrics, I was like, no, this is a school. I can't allow you to have Black Boy on the people's compound. You're going to get me into trouble. So after that, I continued listening to some of his music, and I found the music and the lyrics very infectious. It did something to you. And up to a day like today, Firefighter is still one of my favorite songs, and that's when I got exposed to it. So questions arose in the society. Statements were made. People were saying this music is going to go nowhere. It's too indecent. They will never earn $1 from this type of music. Within weeks of me learning about this music, I was surprised to learn that the music had infected Barbados, Trinidad, New York, Miami, California, most of Europe, and Japan. This music was everywhere. Yet, it was rarely played on the radio in St. Lucia. It was subject to debate amongst all of the decent people who had an issue with the quality of the music and its lewd lyrics. And they complained about the state of our nation's youth and the impact it would have because of its content and the way that they danced to that music. The world is coming to an end, they cried. A cry that is always heard whenever there are winds of change. Because the world has been ending for the longest while. I'm still waiting. But I know the world ends every day, because when you die, the world has ended. But the content of the Dennery segment is nothing new. There's absolutely nothing new to it. Most music that is made popular has three major themes: sex, love, or social commentary. So let's do a simple analysis. Sparrow, very popular. Saltfish, Congo Man, Mr. Benwood Dick, Bag of Sugar, to name a few. Some of his more popular songs. In rap and hip-hop, R. Kelly, Bump and Grind. LL Cool J, Doing It Hard. And in dancehall, Mad Cobra, Gal Flex. Vibes Cartel, Grab Up Your Crotches. Popcorn, Feel Good. Movado, When You Feeling Lonely. Alkaline, Move Mountains. And the list goes on and on and on. So we can conclude that there is absolutely no difference with the themes sung in the Dennery segment than any other music that we've listened to. The difference, however, is that they are utilizing and it is being sung in our native Creole. And we as a people find our local language crude, rough, and indecent. These artists used a totally different approach as well to marketing the music, to selling themselves. They utilized YouTube. Whilst not being given access to mainstream media and TV, they earned money whilst nobody knew about them. They created a distinctly St. Lucian vibe, a St. Lucian sound with our native language as its anchor. It was done using creativity, entrepreneurship, vision, drive, ambition, and most importantly, there was an absence of governmental and formal interference, which they must resist at all costs. Because as long as they become formalized, systemized, and managed, the art form will collapse. Today, all of the decent people at their parties all dance to Piwat and Fossi. It's in the gym classes. It plays on cruises. And soon, you will hear it on a soundtrack of some movie. You will hear one of those Dennery segment songs playing.
1 minute.
So, I must conclude that despite all of the great efforts of persons like Bo Hinkson, Ricky T, Arthur, Teddyson, John, to name a few, they were not able to do it with a distinctive St. Lucianism as is being done today with the Dennery segment. So therefore, it is definitely not a devolution because there has been no breakdown or destruction of the art form. It is clearly not evolution because the change was not gradual, nor was it peaceful. There was a lot of noise because that music is very loud. It was swift. It caused an uproar amongst many groups, yet caused significant and impactful change. It brought money and recognition to many youth. It provided opportunities and raised the profile of St. Lucia. And have the rich and the who's who all splitting in the middle and calling for a firefighter. This is a true revolution.
Hands are already going up. Okay, so we'd like to thank our 5 panelists for very engaging presentations. I think the presentations were riveting, entertaining, and at a theoretical level, I'm sure some of the presentations could be considered Dennery segment in their own right. Right? So we'll go into the questions. I was going to do a recap of what they did, but that's fine. Are we going to go straight into that? Can I ask one question before we go to the audience? I just wanted to put it 2 things, because what happened in the presentation is that there seemed to be a uniform, to some degree or other, sympathy towards the form. So there was not as much contention, which I'm hoping will come from the audience as well. And one of the facts of that entails the people talking about the effect of lyrics or lyrical content on a society, particularly youth. So I'd like to ask whether the panelists could at least speak to that aspect, given that they were all in support or sympathetic towards the form. Anyone is free to begin. Any of the panelists have anything to say on that? That concern that persons have about the lyrical content on youth. I'm just raising it as an issue that perhaps is one of the concerns of who has been called do-gooders by Dr. Felicia. So maybe he could start.
Just to clarify something, I guess I approached it from a literary point of view, where you analyze something without imposing your values on it. Because from the time you impose your values on the art form, you are preventing yourself from seeing the possible qualities of it. So that's the angle I used it. But you can see, yes, that persons were offended. I guess generally it's because of the nature of our solution society and how we've been socialized. If you compare, let's say, a solution child to a child from Martinique, a few miles away, we notice a clear difference. Some of these things heard in the music would not shock a Martinican child, because some of the things we consider taboo here, and we know sex is the greatest taboo in solution. As if the worst thing you can do is have sex. That is a fact. So anything concerning it is seen as being disgusting. So the churchgoers, okay, the holy among us will come down on it. Okay? And this is where you usually start with this whole thing of, okay, how are we offending the heirs of are we making the youth worse than they are? And I think that would be the argument of a lot of persons. Why couldn't they come with something cleaner?
I'm speaking from the perspective of women. The problem I have with the Dennery segment, as I have with the panelist, is that it's dominated by men. And for me, that's an issue. I have a problem with lyrics that say, don't mind them. You see them walk in, you see they have endless style, you see this. Particularly in a society where rape, child molestation, these issues are huge. So it sounds to me that these young men are singing about the fact that it is okay to fouiller because we don't need the pleasure of sex. I don't mind the Dennery segment. I love it. Firefighter is also one of my favorite ones. Fantastic. My problem is the fact that these young men are not singing about songs that they're singing about songs that denigrate women in a society where we see that rape is huge. And in U.S. society, and we saw that in the Black American culture, where you have R. Kelly singing about that kind of music. R. Kelly was arrested, wasn't he, for child molestation? A lot of these artists who sing that kind of music are affiliated in some way with some kind of, I know Vlad's going to hate that, with deviant behavior. When Madonna sang Like a Virgin, touched for the very first time, that was okay with me. I was touched for the very first time. I don't want anybody to fouiller. I don't want anybody to tell me, don't mind them, you deserve to get what you want because of the way you are. That is my problem. The way that they sing about women. I'd like the panelists, all men, most of men, to tell me what their perspective as a woman is in terms of the lyrics.
For the record, I have no problem with the term deviant behavior, but we'll give it to the panelists now. I'll start with the lady, or the woman, woman, as they say in the feminist circles.
That is actually a very good question, and I also have considered this, especially there are some songs that I listen to, and I pay very close attention to the lyrics, and we all, as women, I understand your perspective and what you're saying. When I think of the songs, and the song you spoke about in particular, it says, don't mind them, they still cut in style. I think that's what it is, right? I know in particular that song is referring to the fact that I think you'd have to understand the Dennery segment and what it was. Before Dennery segment, there was a negative connotation attached to Dennery segment. When people went to a fete, when people went to a party in Rodney Bay, or you go to, let's say you go to, I'm not sure, Delirious or something, and you hear those songs being played initially, it was, okay, Dennery segment playing, I can sit down. And a lot of people, that is initially the reaction that the Dennery segment got. It's only now that it's becoming popular, there's a different reaction. And I think a lot of the songs, when he spoke about the cutting style thing, I think he's just referring to the people who cut style, who the way they react to the music, the way they respond, that's how, that is who he's referring to then. As it pertains to the lyrics and its impact and how he speaks about women, I believe that across the board, not only the Dennery segment, but with all genres of music, you have a lot of artists who will do that sort of thing. If we jump to Jamaica, for instance, and you listen to the songs, the artists, they're not very pleasant when they speak about women. You don't hear them talking about sunshine. Lady Saw, Yes, you don't hear them speaking about sunshines and flowers and referring to the women on pedestals. Does that mean that it is right? It is not. But you also do not hear the Jamaican public chastising these artists. They still embrace the dance hall. What I think we can do, or what I think can be done in this perspective, is having censored versions of songs, and also maybe having, there's enough development and processing and energy put into the product, of course, you can have workshops on lyrics and lyricism and having people develop their lyrical content, because I think that is something where it's lacking, and the development needs to be placed as well. So I believe as it pertains to the lyrics and as they speak to women, I believe, yes, it is true that some of the lyrics need to be reviewed, revised, and worked on. Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Ms. George, I just want to say two things on this. One is, I have listened. Sometimes I really just look at YouTube, and I've listened and trying to find if there are women, young women, also singing as part of the Dennery segment. I found one or two, and I was really, really happy to find one or two. Not many. But one thing I would definitely like to see, I'm actually looking forward to, and it just might happen in the way that happened in Jamaica with the dancehall, that a lot of young women will take the genre and begin to express themselves from their perspectives. So where you're going to have a kind of a dialogue now happening as responses to what you don't like that the men are saying from a woman's point of view. It happens, and I hope that it happens with the Dennery segment. The other point is that the music is very commercial. It's very commercial, and the guys are singing what sells. So, I'm not saying it is good or bad. What I'm saying is that they are singing what sells. And their market, women make a large portion of their market. What do you think about that, the fact that women are buying and are dancing and enjoying the music?
So we have another question, but on top of it, as I'm going to the person with the question, on Instagram, there's somebody I follow called Follow Soca. And interestingly, when Dennery segment is playing, the girls many times want to dance by themselves. They don't want the guys there. So in a strange way, the women come to dominate that. I don't know if that is part of how the women assert themselves in relation to it. But anyway.
Thanks, Vlad. I don't know if I really have a question, but I was so moved by Tracy's contribution that I had to add something to that. That sometimes we want to package everything in poetry and metaphor and poetic license. And sometimes, it is what it is. That the Dennery segment is the unveiling of what really happens. Women go to fete, women dance, women must dance a certain way to attract the men. The men come, they spend their money, and here we have a very vibrant economy. That's how it is. Okay? No, but this is a serious thing. There are people who believe that culture is like, a repeating island. And so I want to go back to Jamaica when Lorna Goodison spoke about reggae music and say decent people wanted to know what kind of old nigger music playing on government radio. And then to go back to Bon Tequila, who sang in the late 90s, anytime me hungry again, you are see me nine. Saying that I will, enact violence upon you when I'm hungry. And you know why people were afraid? Because that's the truth. That is what the youth in the ghetto were doing. And so sometimes we need to think less about all the poetics and think more about the reality. And the problem is, they sing it because they do it.
But it's what Ms. George said. She talked about the singers attacking women or something of that sort. But we have to realize now women are the ones actually degrading themselves for the men to speak about them in that particular manner. So if we... Sorry. So, okay, especially like in these times now, society actually they paint women as being sellers of their bodies. Women all around the world, especially African women, that's how they portray us. We are prostitutes, and that's why we dress in that particular way. We have half our bodies out. When we go out, we have to have belly out, half of our anterior section and posterior section out. And men will not have respect for you because they've already seen what you have. If they get you, they get you, but they will not have to think of what you have. So then that's why they will sing and say these things. So I'm not against women. I am a female myself, so I understand. But your women have to take responsibility and understand yourselves.
Okay. Comment on what Mr. Emmanuel said. Yes, in addition to looking at, let's say, literary devices in the works, his point is well taken, and especially coming out of what many persons perceive as a misogynist society. This hatred of women, the denigration, and the acceptance even now that it is still a man's world. And this music is still coming out of this kind of environment, and that is the reality. What the persons are seeing, even when you look at some of the video clippings, and you see split in the middle, make your toothbrush jiggle. Now, why would a woman want to subject herself to that? And that is part of the problem. Again, what it boils down to, marketing. And notice the present tendency now, the worst things the women do, they become more popular. So they no longer chastise for doing what was traditionally considered immoral, but they suddenly become overnight stars, and that is part of the problem.
Also, points well made to the young lady who spoke. I really love the point that she made, because it is true. When I think of myself listening to the Dennery segment, there are some songs I love, but there are some songs I would not respond to as a person. If I go to a party and I hear Caterpillar song, what am I going to do? Do you really think that I would not respond to it? And I think it is also, like she's expressed, empowerment of yourself as a woman. If you go to a party and a man is dancing, or you want to dance and somebody wants to dance behind you and the song says force, and he starts to do like that Jamaican ramp, you know how you have the rough dancing and all of that, you don't have to do it. And it really is a matter of, like she stated, yourself, how you portray yourself. I can enjoy a genre of music and not necessarily have to do what it says. And when we also said about I feel a bit uncomfortable, but the force, and you don't want to be, like I said, fouye, I'm sorry. I understand what that is, and I understand how degrading that is when a man speaks of how he deals with a woman. But I'm also saying, as a person in an intimate setting with your person, you know how, as a woman, you are empowered enough to control the situation and how you are dealt with. Because that is, in my opinion, that is what it entails to be a consenting adult, That is part of the package and the responsibilities, right?
We have a question. Two interesting things. I mean, one is, how do we engage with music, and do we engage with all music in the same way? Do we start out listening to lyrical content, or are we there for the beat and so on, and is that necessarily a bad decision? And two, I'm wary of presenting women as these lobotomized, mindless people who are just dancing to this like zombies. They actually have minds, and they probably connect with something in it as well. The women in the videos perhaps are connecting with something and have no problem with that aspect of it as well. And does that make them lesser women? I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's the case. But anyway.
Good afternoon. One of the panelists, I'm not sure which, mentioned how a lot of the lyrics are because this is what sells. But my question is, why does this sell? Is it because society is just like this, or is it because this is how it's been shaped to be? Because I feel like a lot of this is because society has been shaped to degrade women to an extent. Of course, it's been mentioned that a lot of women degrade themselves, but why do they do that? Is it because they think they have to? Is it because they want to? Is it because they think that's just what their lot in life? So what I'd like to know is why you would think that this is what sells, because that reflects on the society.
If I could take one more question, and then the panelists, is there any other question? All right. So we'll remember this question and...
I just have a comment, and I may know what that sells, but not all that counts matters, and not all that matters count. So the economic situation is something we push in here. But remember, in Hitler's time in Germany, that was a very prosperous time, but it was a very evil time. And I'm wondering, in all of these countries, all of these like Jamaica and Trinidad, how good are these societies? How has this music empower the people of that society and make it a better society? Look at the crime rate in Trinidad, the crime rate in Jamaica, and where we go in here. Think on these things.
Take one more question. Yeah. Can we just take the other one more? Yeah. Okay. All right. So we take one more question. We have a guest here who you are with. This is Martin James. He's the chairman of ECHO. All right. So yes, he's a very special guest that we have.
Wow. Thank you. Well, I didn't come for all that. So I just want to just weigh in. Thank you very much. And I think that what's happening there is truly commendable, and I think that deserves a round of applause. Let me tell you that. It actually speaks to the evolution, the resolution, the renaissance of what we do. Now, here's what. I just want to just throw a couple of things just for us to weigh in on it. What we refer to as a Dennery segment, I'll tell you all straight, is actually a renaissance. It happens where it creates something where we could judge it, where we could analyze it and do all that. St. Lucia, whether we like it or not, is split in the middle. Simply because we refer to as people from South as from South. The South refer to people as North as from Castries. And we differ in the way we pronounce what we do and everything and even our songs. Now, what we have to be mindful of, the Dennery segment, and I've had that argument, the Dennery or the Kodoro music, what it has done is to allow creativity. And most times what we do to beat it up, we judge creativity. You cannot judge creativity. You could have some fundamentals that persons could follow, but somebody's creative mind is their creative mind. Now with that one, to sit and think of, make your toothwash jiggle and what have you, that sounds like unheard of. Our hypocritical side. You cannot say that, you cannot say that. That happens all the time. Elvis Presley went through that same system we are going through now, because at the time when they came with the music, it was unheard of. It speaks to the evolution of things. Now, there's the subliminal message. When, who sang Clarks? Who have the Clarks there, daddy? Somebody, Vibes Cartel. That brought economic value to the people who created Clarks and all those things. And it also created problems in Jamaica, because what happened? Looting, people mash up places, everybody wants a Clarks because of this, the power, the subliminal message it created. A lot of the music have degrading women, violence. We are suffering with a lot of violence in St. Lucia now. You know why? The music, the subliminal aspect. And that is what? It is something that impacts a nation. And you see the Dennery segment? I went to a wedding. And if you see the elderly people, hey, what time the Dennery segment coming on? It is a new crave. It's a new crave. It's a new thing. And we should accept it for being a new thing. If we start dissecting it and we realize that, oh boy, the women, it's degrading and what have you, hey, it's left to the individual. You don't have to dance to it. But let me tell you something. It has done what no politician in St. Lucia could do. It has united St. Lucia. Everybody is into it. And the diaspora by far. And the diaspora. So at the end of the day, I just want to say thank you. And I look forward to the part 2 of this panel discussion. Thank you much.
Well, I would like to respond to a number of issues all at once, comments all at once. First and foremost, music did not cause the crime and violence in Jamaica and Trinidad. That is a direct result of political corruption. And let's place the blame where the blame lies. All of the crime in Jamaica and Trinidad is because of corrupt politicians and not the music. They utilized all of their foot soldiers to do all of their work. Organized music in and of itself, if we do our research in terms of organized music that goes through labels, is also something that is directed to create the impacts that they blame on music. Music in and of itself does not create those issues. That is corruption from political figures and persons who hold the economic reins. Secondly, the song, for example, Don't Mind Them, is a social commentary. It doesn't degrade women, because what it is telling a lot of young men, all of those women that cut in style on you as a young man, don't mind them, they by the bus driver. If you listen to the words of the song, because what a lot of people don't realize, and if we do an assessment of our society, young men are suffering badly, because most of us, our first heartbreak is from a young girl we love with. Take our mother money to buy a rose, and a big man they love in, and it hurt us, it break our hearts, and for years afterwards we suffer. No, it's a fact. So the song is saying, don't mind them. We can overcome that. Don't mind them. That's a social commentary piece. No. Because one of the things that we've done in our society is that in the thrust to ensure that women become on an equal footing, what we have done is that we've caused another imbalance, where every single thing, we make it seem as if women are always victims. And at the end of the day, this victim culture of women is now creating another imbalance. We must look at it on its parity. Clearly there are songs, but when the women sing, look at when the women sing. When the woman who was singing on the same rhythm as split in the middle, the male version, it's no less smutty, but there's not a problem with us singing it. When the patras and the women sing about all of the men, if you do have a big billing bang, so the men counteract with I have my potoi and my balamin. The reality is that the men are reacting to the demands that women are placing on men in the society, and we are singing, I have what it takes, because if we too small, you'll laugh with your friends. Don't mind him, he don't have nothing. So it's a reaction.
I want to respond to the lady, the young lady in the dark uniform. Yes, who was talking about whether we have shaped the society that way, and that's why that kind of music or these lyrics sell. Unfortunately, yes, we live in a capitalist society. This is a system that we have embraced, and so we manufacture, we produce goods that sell, and all kinds of goods, including musical products. So it is unfortunate, but that is how it is. And the guys, and this is not to say that what they are writing is good. I'm not making a judgment, but I'm saying that as persons in the society, as business persons, business artists in the society, they are writing what sells, and that is the reality. So it is a feature of capitalism. The young lady here.
Let me be general and try to summarize some thoughts here. I want to say this in response to the creativity comment of Mr. James, that creativity without intellectual thought cannot be sustained. And therefore, it remains in the realm of an accident, a copy, and a fad. I think we need to challenge our artists to not just be accidental with their creativity, but add some kind of intellectual thought to it. Intelligence without responsibility is dangerous. And our society is in need of our artists as bearers of information, of those who would conserve the artifacts of our society, and as well, they need to entertain at the same time. We need to remember that this is not just about Kuduro music or the Dennery section. In 20 years' time, we may be discussing the same thing about something else. It is entirely about the psychological shift of the world. Instant gratification, trying to satisfy upfront those needs that we have with the brash, the brazen, while still towing the line between what is supposed to be conservative and what is accepted. Take it out of the musical realm, we have, like I said, the Donald Trumps, and all of those who have now used this brashness as a selling point. Again, marketing. Be wise. This is a psychological shift. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you. So, unfortunately, we've come to the end of what I think was a very profound conversation about Dennery segment, and from many segments of the society, young people, academics, and otherwise. So first, I'd like us to thank the panelists, Dr. Anthony Felician, Dr. Travis Weeks, Ms. Sonasia James, Mr. Kurt Harris, and Mr. Ernest Utley. We'd like to thank you, the audience, and those who contributed to the discussion. We'd like to thank the persons who fidgeted on behalf of the moral position. So also, before I pass you over to Nicole, Nicole has been the engine behind the academic discussion, so I think she should. Yeah. Okay.
This is the part at the end of the movie where the credits are running and we figure, okay, yeah, boy, I need to go now, let me go to the washroom. But this could not happen without a number of people who are very instrumental, our happy little helpers. And I need to recognize them. Ms. Dianthea Joseph, very little but very powerful lady. Thank you so much for your help. Of course, we have our invited guests with us. Thank you very much. Media houses, GIS, thank you for broadcasting. Thank you for your presence, for covering the event. Thank you very much, gentlemen right there. HTS, of course, Miss Natalie Jolie Fannis, our communications head, for promoting the event. Janelle Knight, Melen Phillip, a number of people, absolutely important people worthy of mention. The Nobel Laureate Committee, Mrs. Valerie King Norville in particular. Thank you so very much, Mrs. Dubule, housekeeping and maintenance. Have a few other people, but I'm going to pause here for a bit because I saw a packed house. I saw people standing in the back, and I want to thank you, faculty, staff, your presence here and your attendance at this event is absolutely phenomenal. Students, every single division is represented here today, and I think that is amazing, and we really have to look forward to a part 2 of the event. Thank you very much, our deans, Vanessa Emmanuel from Operations, Cara, Royston Emmanuel. I have a special point here for you because he reminded me every day up until today, hey, the event's coming up, I'm looking forward to it. And he was actually the brainchild behind the topic. So we really need to give him credit for that, which was refined by our moderator, Mr. Lucian. And somebody who often gets forgotten, Mr. Gavin McDonald, our AV magician. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.